Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. Hang out with this nerd,
Ted.
And today we're going to build a better knife thrower, or should we make a knife fighter instead?
If you want to drop down the description below, you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with us.
So we had a viewer write in and ask us how to build a knife thrower in 5th edition Legends of Dragon. And he is absolutely correct. It is difficult to make a good knife thrower compared to some versions of the game. It could actually got to the point where it was cheesy, where you're actually like a dagger Gatling gun. I've seen it done even worse with darts.
Yes.
It got really ridiculous, but it's still a fun idea, you know, that the character that fights with knives and throws knives, how do you do that and balance the fun idea concept with the mechanics of the game? That's the tricky part.
The guy says he's playing an adventure league, so he's limited to the Watts products. You know, typically he's like, well, I would normally want to homebrew some stuff and work with the DM, but in this situation he can't because he's stuck to the hardcore material.
So here's the kind of things we've looked at. We looked at the different fighting styles you're going to want to use. We looked at some of the feats that would come in handy. The other thing we have to look at is, you know, class options, race. And you know, it's a character, but we might as well do a background as well. You know what I'm saying? Let's start the background and just get it out of the way. Let's just go entertainer.
All right.
He's a knife thrower, yeah, or a criminal for another angle, possibly.
That's where I was gonna go. I was gonna go with criminal, just
cut purse, like, cut through.
Yeah.
The one good thing about this build that you're using daggers, so you're like the weapon is already determined, so you could be the small races and it doesn't matter.
Right.
Halfling would work really well. Now you'd be limited in like how many daggers you can carry. The fact that you could be a stout halfling is going to give you, resistance to poison, which is helpful.
Absolutely.
But Dex is going to be your go-to stat, which you're going to need, and then your backup stat is Con. So we're talking about a warrior type character. They're going to be very useful. But again, like the forest gnome gets a bonus to Dex, elves get bonuses to Dex.
What is going to fit your play style as well as max out the build?
Yes, half elf works, human works. There's a couple feats we're looking at, so the variant human definitely works. This one's really a toss-up because there's a lot of different races you could go with, and the predominant thing you want is that high dex.
Correct. So it's going to be absolutely required because not only is it going to boost your armor class, but it is going to be your to hit and damage.
And this is probably a lightly armored fighter.
That's the way I see it as well.
And I don't see the knife fighter, knife thrower running around at full plate for some reason. So I would say I think we should go human.
All right.
For the feat at first level.
Okay.
Because if we do that by 4th level, we could have both the feat options that I think we're looking at.
Okay.
If we wanted to go that route.
All right, now the big question is, like, this is a long build to get all the things that you absolutely are going to want to have. So if you're talking about getting the feat at 4th level, that means until we get to 4th level, we're not going into the multi-classing. So what class are we starting off with? We looked at this, and paramount to this build is fighting styles.
and it's a matter, there's 3 fighting styles I'm actually looking at.
All right.
So you have to decide if you're going to wholly dedicate this build to fighting with thrown, or you want to be more versatile and get some stab action in there as well.
Right. Now, the dagger as it stands has a set look to it. But if you're talking about a knife thrower, those things tend to be a little bit more meaty and lengthy. So you could just be like, all right, well, I wield 2 daggers and I mix it up between melee and ranged and still look kind of badass.
You could do that. You can even, if you really wanted to, I would even allow the reskinning of short swords and the long knives. I've done it in the past as well. Like you said, if you want to mix it up, well, there's 3 different fighting styles we mentioned, right? So archery, obviously, there's a given.
Right.
Then there is close quarter sharpshooter, or what is it?
Close quarter sharpshooter.
From Unearthed Arcana, which for this guy, he might not be able to use that because he probably can't use it because it's
Unearthed Arcana.
Because it's Unearthed Arcana. But for, if you guys at home, if you're building a knife thrower, you can do what you want.
And the other one would be the two-weapon fighting.
And the other one is two-weapon fighting because it allows you to get your strength damage to your offhand, which is going to be useful when throwing knives if you want to use that bonus action for an extra attack.
Right.
So you could start off right out the gate getting 2 attacks around and doing the full damage. In addition to that, you could also take dual weapon wielder or dual wielding.
Dual wielder.
Yeah, dual wielder as a feat, which if you decide to fight with them in melee, increases your armor class. If you decide to throw them, you get to draw 2 knives every round. So that's a bonus.
And having seen the dagger thrower in my game, which is Ryan's character, he's always suffering that issue of I can't interact with enough daggers.
Yes.
So he's like, okay, well, all right, I'll use my bonus to draw. And next round I'll throw 2 and then draw.
Well, so that one feat, basically, if you start off with a dagger in each hand, you could throw. If you had another attack, you could actually draw 2 daggers again. Maybe you can't throw them both,
right?
But you could still have them in your hands. That would mitigate that.
So let's look at the classes that we feel are necessary for the build, and then we can get into what is the progression to get there.
Okay.
So we talked about, all right, we need fighting styles, and the only way to get multiple fighting styles is to have multiple classes that produce those.
Yes.
So we talked about taking levels in fighter as well as ranger.
Okay, there's 2 reasons for both of those, actually. It's not just the fighting styles.
Right.
One, fighter has access to all the fighting styles, so we're golden there. We're going to get what we need out of fighter,
right?
No matter which route we go. Now, ranger on the other hand actually has access to most of the ones we're talking about. Actually, it also has access to all the ones we're talking about. The difference with ranger is you have to wait till level 2 to get it, and what we really want from ranger is level 3, right?
Which is when you get...
We only need 3 levels of ranger.
Because you want to be a hunter, you want to be able to have that Colossal Slayer ability, which is going to add that extra die 8 damage to every attack on something that's already wounded.
Yes.
So that's pretty pumpty, but we're also going to wind up with the side benefit of... If we cap out at level 3, we have 3 first level spells, which can be used for Hunter's Mark to add on yet another D6 of damage.
And I believe the Hunter Mark's D6. That's every time you hit. That's not just once around like Colossal Slayer. It's actually much better. There's that. Or the other thing to look at too is if you're looking at the alternate build from Ranger, the one that was put out on Unearthed Arcana, then it's even better because you get that initial round where if you go first, I believe you get an extra attack or something like that. Yeah, it's been a while since I read it. So then it gets even better.
Right.
Fighter, we're looking at going Battle Master.
Of course. Number 1, because you're going to be throwing in the extra dice, which is going to increase your damage, but at the same time, you're also when you're using those maneuvers, you get to help control the battlefield.
Yeah, so it's and it's very thematic too.
Yeah.
Like doing trick shots with knives, like why else would you even want to be a knife thrower?
I'm going to pin him to the wall, or I'm going to,
trip him, knock his weapon out of his hand, whatever. And then the third class that we would want to look at is Assassin.
The obvious one, which is Rogue.
Yeah, Rogue,
so we got fighter,
Assassin.
Fighter, Battle Master, Ranger, Hunter, and then Rogue, Assassin.
So I really feel like maybe only 3 levels of Rogue, 3 levels of Ranger, and then you just go Battle Master.
As always, anytime you enter into these type of things, it adds the conundrum of, do I go to level 4 to get the stat bump / feat in each of the things, or is it worth it to just stick out the core class? Because that's going to be, if you're mainly going to be sticking with your fighter, you're looking at, all right, it's going to be 3, 3, and 14. So that would get you
3 attacks.
Would get you the 3 attacks. It would get you a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stat bumps.
So you lose.
So you're not really losing out.
Yeah.
You just might wind up getting them sooner. Because you're going to get one at 18 and one at 20 because the fighter gets the most.
Yes.
So I think it in this case, because you're mixing it with fighter, you're probably better off sticking with the fighter because you're going to wind up with...
You also have to look at your superiority die when you get them, so that's like another factor as well.
Right.
That also opens up another feat that you might want to consider taking, which is the one that gives you an extra superiority die, which is really good if you happen to be a battle master already.
Yes, because doesn't it, if you take the feat and you're already a battle master, doesn't it go to...
It gives you the extra maneuvers, and the die is your battle master die, not the die 6.
Right. Yeah, so that definitely is going to make a change, because you would get your last die at 15th level, which you're going to miss out on. You're going to miss out on 2 maneuvers that you would get at 15th level. So taking the extra feat would definitely mitigate.
So at that point, you might actually also consider going to level 4 in Ranger and Rogue. You'll lose 1 feat from Fighter, but gain 2.
But in that case, that's going to bump you down to level 12 in Fighter. So you're not going to have a second use of Indomitable.
Meh. For this build, not important.
Not important.
That's all you lose, right?
It does appear that way. Well, with Ranger, you're going to get the same hit die with Rogue, though, you're going to have a step down, so it depends upon whether...
Well, I feel like the extra 2 stat bumps the extra stat bump is probably worth it. And, whatever you get from those classes, 4th level generally is a dead level because you're getting the ability.
Correct.
So, but I think overall, like, the extra stat bump probably outweighs. Like, a loss of a nominal, big deal. You're not going to... That's not integral to this build.
So you will actually wind up with 7.
So, feats. We already said dual wielder is definitely one to look at.
And he was talking about going with the crossbow expert.
Yeah, crossbow expert does give you some benefits. You're only going to... sharpshooter is probably better. You might have actually mentioned sharpshooter.
That might have been it.
So you're going to take sharpshooter so you can get the extra damage.
So attacking at long range doesn't impose disadvantage. Your ranged weapon attacks ignore half cover and 3/4 cover, which actually is a benefit of the one fighting style. And before you make an attack with a ranged weapon that you're proficient with, you can choose to take a -5 to get the +10. So that's going to further increase how much you're popping on.
Yeah, so I think by the time it's said and done, we're like 2d6 sneak damage. We're like a d6 from Hunter's Mark, a d8 from Colossal Slayer, and then
superiority dice.
Then your superiority dice. So that die 4 is going to have a bunch of dice added to it. And again, we mentioned there was a couple routes to go, and we kind of talked about using archery as a fighting style in combination with dual wielder for versatility. But the close quarter sharpshooter and archery together is also really good because, one, you don't have to worry about cover anymore. It does not exist for you. And you get another +1 to hit, so +3 to hit. Really good, especially if you're taking sharpshooter and you're taking the negatives to hit. So
that'll mitigate it.
The only thing is, then you're not taking the 2-weapon fighting style, and you're not going to get your damage to the offhand.
Right.
So that is kind of what you have to decide. Like, do you where you want to go, where you want to go, and you also don't get the dual draw, which is also very helpful.
Well, I mean, it's if it's possible that you're looking to just wing it, it's you got one dagger that hits like a Mack truck.
Well, that's true.
And then it's like, I'll just toss this other one for the heck of it.
So I would, I don't know. I think personally, I would go for the versatility and be able to both, get up and close or personal with your knives or from afar. And I also think thematically, it's a little bit cooler.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're just good at knives. It doesn't matter where. You could actually fight a guy with a longsword, and you're just got a pair of knives. He's outreaching you, but you're all over the place with those daggers. So it's a fun build,
up close and personal. So, what do you guys think about our expert knife handler? Put your comments down below. While you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
You can find all of our social links down below.
So until next time, stay nerdy.